Going live with my Live with Tony. Here we go. Where is my picture? All right, good evening. It's Friday. Another week gone by as quickly as you can imagine. It's Friday, and it's time for my Live with Tony in the Friday 5 o'clock hour. And I have an interesting article that I want to share with people today that I found just fascinating and doing a really good job of detailing what goes on with our heart and how it impacts our blood flow that goes through our arteries. And of course, the blood flow and how it goes through our whole body system has a huge impact on our brain, right? Because our brain is consuming about 20% of the oxygen that we breathe in, and that's where you get those rich blood cells. So that we talk about a healthy body is a healthy mind, and a healthy mind is a healthy body. If we can keep those two congruent and connected with one another, my goodness, we not only have physical well-being and fitness, but we also have mental well-being and fitness. And this has been a week that I have spent with a lot of different people talking about mental health and mental fitness, as more and more people seem to be in the stage, as we at least we thought we were getting through the COVID stage, back to worrying about their anxieties and depressions and stresses in their lives and trying to get something back to normal, until the later part of the week started to reflect on, well, wait a minute, we got some shutdowns and things that may push us back a little bit. And boy, how discouraging and depressing that can be. So what do we need to do? We need to be more active. And so here I am reading the current issue of Men's Health, the December 2020, hard to believe, December 2021. We're about ready to embark on 2022. Men's Health magazine, and it's a really, really good article. What is your heart doing? What is your heart doing for you all day? And what is it that your heart is doing? And what are some of the things that we do that can be improved to generate a better flow of blood and give our heart a little bit more periods of time of rest? So we get into this whole conundrum about, stressing the heart through the exercises we do, but what do those exercises really do to the heart, and how does that really impact the blood that flows into our mental capacity and our thinking? And I think I've talked about this in seminars so many times, that when I want my brain to kick in the high gear creativity mode, innovation mode, what I've learned to do is go out and run a mile. Just running a mile, it changes the flow of oxygen going into my brain, and the blood flow that obviously is being sent there. And bam, it feels like my head starts blooming with ideas and suggestions and solutions to where I get through this infinite creative mind. But what I want to at least share with you here today is our heart, right? We get these blood tests here, but our heart is beating 60 to 100 times a minute. Less often if you're fit. So think about that. The more fit you are, the less beats it has. And sometimes people think, well, gee, if it's beating less, isn't that a bad thing? Shouldn't it be beating more? No, actually not. If it's beating less, it's giving your heart more time to rest and to recover in between its beats. If it's beating faster, then it has less time for it to rest, and therefore at some point in time it starts to give out, because you've so exhausted it that it doesn't have the time to recover, hasn't recovered and repaired itself as well. There are the chambers that blood. So the better shape you're in, the larger your heart is, especially the right and left ventricles. These are the chambers that blood goes through before it is shuttled to your lungs and to the rest of your body, like to the rest of your body, your lungs, as well as your brain, and to your head. These are the chambers that blood goes through and gets to the oxygen and nutrients where they are necessary. Are oxygen and nutrients essential for our brain? Without a doubt. And how are they getting there? Well, they're getting there through what we eat, what we sometimes smell, and it's occasionally what we touch, but they're getting there through your heart and the ventricles that are pumping blood through your body. A more powerful heart can push more blood with each pump. So exercise, right? We talk about one of the elements of brain health in our Maximum Memory Mastery online course is exercise. And now this starts to explain, for me, it puts some of the pieces together why exercise is so important to the heart, is so important to the flow of blood, which is then so important to our thinking and to our memory and to the capacity of us to retain, store, recall information. The increased efficiency, meaning the more you can pump through the heart, the more powerful the heart can push blood with each pump. So now we're going to push more blood with the pump. The increased efficiency means your body gets the same amount of blood with fewer beats, allowing the heart more time to rest in between beats. So this sounds so simple, it sounds so logical, but how many people really understand these things about our body? And it's systemic. So the other thing I love about this is our body is systemic. It isn't like, doctors, I sometimes have a hard time with doctors that put our bodies into silos. So I hurt my shoulder, and I got to go see a doctor for my shoulder. Well, I fell on my elbow. I got to go see another doctor for my elbow. Well, I landed on this part of my wrist. Well, I got to go see a third doctor for my wrist. And I say, wait a minute, isn't this like kind of like one arm? Isn't it like my shoulder? And then the muscle that comes down here to my elbow that goes into my wrist, aren't they kind of like one piece of me, as opposed to, let's go see this doctor for this, let's go see a doctor for the elbow, let's go see a doctor for the wrist, and by the way, you fell on your side, so we'll see a doctor for your hip. Oh, by the way, you may want to see a doctor for your knee. I'm like, 5 doctors for one fall? It's like, well, the heart is in a similar process. Do we stop and think about what are we doing to our heart and the exercises that we're doing? So at a lower heart rate, and this comes from Massachusetts General Hospital. So a lower heart rate simply is much more time that the heart muscle is not activated, and the repairs and recovery mechanisms of it are significantly more efficient. So think about the bigger the heart and the pumps and the blood that go through, and the less frequent they have to be, the better off you are as a holistic body and a holistic person. Don't just assume that sitting is helping your heart get rest. See, this is the next mistake we make. Okay, so we're just going to sit. We're not going to overextend it. But staying planted for extended periods of time causes serious problems over the long term, which stiffens the artery walls, which limit blood flow to your heart. So now we understand artery walls. How many of you have heard about plaque or calcium builds up in the arteries? Well, the more passive you are and the more that you sit, the more it clogs up the arteries and what's pumping this blood through your whole body's systemic approach. Now, what can you do to help? So here we got the process. We know we want to do some things. So what can you do to help? And I thought this was so simple. It's like, God, is there anybody that can't do this? Move your legs, says Dr. Gibbs, who works at the Sedentary Research Lab at the University of Pittsburgh. I think we've heard of the University of Pittsburgh. One of the most amazing mechanisms our body has is called the muscle pump, which then explains muscle, right? Anaerobic, right? Lifting, 2-pound bottles of water, get a couple of water bottles and just lift up. Muscle pump. Every time you flex the muscles in your calves, so here's what the University of Pittsburgh is saying, right? Every time you flex the muscle in your calves, so as you're sitting, just flex the muscles in your calves, just like kind of flex them, just pull up on, as you're sitting there watching me or sitting on the couch, flex the muscles. It squeezes blood back up into the veins. So wow, just sit there, and it's okay to sit. What the doc says here, hey, it's okay to sit for 6 to 8 hours a day, but not all at one time. So don't just sit in one place for 6 to 8 hours or just sit in your chair in your office and bury your head in your laptop and work. What you want to do is get up at least every hour. So what Doc Gibbs is saying, you get up and around at least once an hour. If that's not an option, even just fidgeting or flexing your calves gives your heart some extra strength. So if you can't get up and you're sitting at a seminar, you're sitting listening to a speaker in a class, all the doc is saying, my goodness, just flex your calves. So flex those calves and it helps pump more blood through the arteries, which we've now already talked about are essential for going through your lungs and delivering a rich oxygen supply to your brain. And who thinks that sitting down, becoming a couch potato, is like, wow, I'm resting, so therefore I'm not exerting, and I got to get up and walk, and maybe I got to go up a flight of steps. And here's the connection of exercise, and we've been talking about this as part of our elements of brain health. The crucial nature of exercising is vital to cognitive fitness. And here we are, sitting down even if you have to, just flexing those calves, as Dr. Gibbs says. Just flex those calves. Who would think something as simple as that can make such a powerful difference in the blood flow through your body? But if you step back and think about it, right? Each of the bones and the ligaments and the systems in the body are all connected. We're one holistic system. So what I think that's so crucial is we learn from doctors and researchers that are exploring the interconnectivity of each of these pieces, so we don't get into, oh, I got to go see a doctor for the shoulder and a doctor for the elbow and a doctor for the wrist and a doctor for the hip, but we get to see our body in the flow of exercising and how it impacts oxygen through our lungs, oxygen into the parts of the body that need it, which then connects to the cognitive fitness, our memory. How do we encode information in a positive way if we've got rich supplies of oxygen that are helping those dendritic spines do their firings and make those connections across the synapse? How do we not realize that just squeezing the calves in our legs, sitting down watching TV and getting up and just walking around a table or so every hour can make a huge difference to how we then decide to call it a night and go have a night's rest, which is the next element of brain health, which is how do we get our right sleep, which we've talked about. That is the conclusion of what I wanted to share with you from this. There's another part of this article. I will go over it on Monday. The materials that are coming out on brain health and cognitive fitness are just endless. We're in an explosion of research and materials that are coming out to how can humans make such a difference with their mental capacities, their physical well-being, that literally makes a huge impact on their life expectancies and how they live their lives. And COVID has put us to the test, but I'm convinced with knowing the right things, we can all pass the test with flying colors and ace the final exam. Have a good weekend, and lots of good championship games this weekend on the football schedule, and not sure what the pro schedule looks like. Haven't looked at Sunday schedule yet, but certainly I've looked at what I'm watching tonight, tomorrow, and we'll see who wins and who moves on to the Final Four that goes in for the bowl championships. So have a good weekend. We'll see you on Monday evening.